Since the dawn of time, man has been curious. And for almost as long, the Vibes Broadcast Network has sought the truth. Investigate, discuss, explore. Okay, maybe in other episodes, but this one is just listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Miss Susan Jane, and she is an intuitive life coach. And I told her she's in such a rush. It's Friday over there already because she's in Australia. So how are you today?
I am going really well. It's a lovely day over here. So hopefully that weather goes over to you when you get it tomorrow.
Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Oh, okay then. I call myself an Intuitist because I've discovered what it means to have the two bodies, the physical body and the spiritual body. Mm-hmm. And I discovered this the hard way. It was during a violent pack rape that I actually left my body and was watching it playing out in the back of the car. It was really weird because you don't actually have an emotional connection with your spirit doesn't have an emotional connection with your physical body. We use emotions to communicate with each other, but there isn't actually an emotional connection. So while I was standing there watching what was going on, there was no emotion to it. There was no attachment to it. I could see the energy, and you talk about the vibes and the energy, you could see the energy sort of radiating from, and I call it her because it didn't seem like me, but you could see it radiating from her jaw where she was punched in the face, and you could see this energy coming out, and you could see the blood. You saw blood on the mouth, but you couldn't taste it. There's none of those five physical senses that are attached to it. And when I say see, it's not even seeing. It's just knowing. And because you know what a sunflower looks like, you can see it in your mind, and you know what it looks like. So there was all these things that were happening, and when it first started, I was really truly aware that there's no way I could stop what was going on. The more I fought, the more I was physically damaged. So I stopped fighting, and that's when I sort of went. And I'm not a religious person, so I'm not a religious. I don't follow any religion, but I did turn around and say, well, if I can't stop them from doing this to me, how can I stop them doing it to somebody else? And in that instant, so I asked, in that instant moment, I left my body and I was watching it happen. And that's when I got messages, this information from the greater source, God, higher energies, whatever you want to call it. I just got this information while I was basically standing, for want of another word, watching what was going on. Cool. So I had this very clear understanding that we have these two physical bodies now, or two bodies, sorry, physical and a spiritual. Now, the situation with this was I couldn't talk to anyone about it. It didn't make sense. What happened didn't make sense. So I didn't talk about it to anyone. I've only just in the last, and this happened when I was 19, I've only in the last 5 years actually started to talk about it. But 12 months almost to that day, I had a near-death experience at work. I was at work, passed out, and the last part I remember that was, if you can imagine laying on the floor and everybody's looking over you, and then you stand up, everybody's gaze follows you. I stood up and no one's gaze followed me. And I kept on going up. So I left my body again, and I had a near-death experience, and I can talk about that, in that, and in a greater, this is just a package deal. And then it was like, so that happened recently when I was very young, obviously when I was quite young. And then when I was in quite an emotionally abusive relationship, so I started doing a lot of reading, and I read a lot of books about personal development, about spirituality, about finances too, because I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. So there was a lot of those. I never read fiction. They were always facts, and I needed to get something out of each book, and I needed to have something resonate with me for me to take it on. And that's when I read about astral traveling, near-death experiences, things like that. And the pennies started to drop. I started to understand what was going on and what had actually happened. So, sorry, this has gone a little bit longer than I anticipated.
No, take your time. Take your time.
So when I started reading about astral travel, and astral travel is when you leave your body, and majority of times you do it at night, and you're traveling around, so you would understand what that is. Well, the third time I left my body, I did it deliberately because I practiced astral traveling. So every night I'd go lay down and I'd go, okay, I want to travel, I want to do this, I want to do that. One of the things that I was really, really particular about was, in every book I read, if something resonated with me, I tested the theory. I always tested the theories. And so consequently, I have a very vast understanding, not deep, but a vast understanding of different areas. So when you talk about astral traveling, I practiced it, I did it, got so excited that I came straight back to my body, which was, so I didn't enjoy it as much as what I could do because I got too excited. Again, the emotion brings you straight back in that sort of context. So doing all that reading had given me the ability to test those theories, and I tested a lot of theories. And in testing those theories, it gave me the confidence to understand what I believe intuition is. And to me, it's as basic, intuition is as basic as the communication between our spiritual body and our physical body. And it does it in many different ways and different channels and different aspects. But basically, it is that spirit side connecting with the physical side. They've got to connect somehow. Right. They've got to do it some way. And that's where I call, that's the intuition. And then obviously you break it right down from there. So that's sort of how I got to where I am now. Did you want the short version?
No, that's fine. Well, I've made an observation, and I've noticed that, because I've felt like I've done the astral projection twice. Yeah. And I everybody that I meet that has some kind of abilities or is able to do things like that, there's always seemed to be one thing in common, and that's some kind of a trauma. Because, well, I don't want to get into details on this show, but I had something pretty traumatic happen to me as a child, and everyone in my life that has these abilities have gone through something similar. And when you were talking about what happened to you, I'm like, is there a correlation with that, or is it just a coincidence?
No, I believe that there's a reason. And again, the only reason I can talk about that incident now is because I found a positive to it. And I believe that everything that is happening or does happen to us is a reason. If I wasn't listening or going down the right path, it's almost like, okay, I'm putting a roadblock. You're not going down that way. You've got to change direction. And if I'm not listening to my intuition and following the guidance of it, then something stronger and more determined is going to come up in front of it. But what I find really challenging is when it does happen to young children, and it does happen, I think it's there because it allows you to. And I know this is horrible, and it's nothing's nice, even what happened to me, it's not nice. And then I certainly wouldn't wish it on anyone else. But if we can go back and get a better understanding of it and see what it has created for us in some way, shape or form, which may have happened 20 years later, as it did with me, it wasn't until 15 years later that I understood what had happened. And then I could change my way of thinking. I don't look at that as it was a traumatic time, it was a bad time, but I don't look at it that way anymore because I see the positive side to it. And I guess that's why when I talk about it, I say she, I call it she, because I know that was my body, my shell, but it's not me. It's not who I really am. Who I really am was moved from there. And that's when I sort of go into all that detail. The physical body is here. The physical body isn't here for a purpose. The spiritual body is here for a purpose. And it uses the physical body to achieve that purpose, because spirit can't touch, taste, they don't have the 5 senses. So spirit has to come into a body to get that and get that moving. So yeah, there's, one of the areas when I'm doing life coaching is to go back and have a look at some of those areas, the trauma or the dramas that we've had, and try and see if we can just change the way we're looking at them. I'm not saying what those guys did was right, and they certainly wasn't, it wasn't nice at all. But you will find that the message that I got when I left my body, and I have spoken to other counselors, like psychologists and stuff like that, not about mine, but they've actually called it, there's a term for it, and it's like detachment or something to that effect. It's a way of protecting ourselves. And I thought, well, that's the clinical aspect. When you're on the vibes, when you're talking about the spiritual side of things, we look at it in a very different way. Right. But the messages I got allowed me to come back into my body and continue on in a completely different manner. So, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten what your question was. Oh, was there a correlation? Yes, I do. I honestly believe we have these situations for us to be able to say, all right, stop going down that path. Let's have a look at another one. I honestly believe even as a child, you may have an experience as a child. So later on in your life, that you get this understanding for it. So you may hold on to that negativity and you may go rah, 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 rah. But there's going to be something else that switches on when you're ready, and it's going to give you that understanding of what happened and how you can see a positive to it.
Well, and Ed, I don't want to sound sacrilegious here, but I kind of liken it to when Jesus was on the cross and how he suffered and he died, but he rose. And I think it was his spirit had left and then came back. So maybe that has some kind of correlation there,
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, when we look at things like the Bible and that, it has gone through so many people's understanding of it and people's way of experiencing it. So you could imagine if you went into just that situation, you went, okay, so Jesus died on the cross, and then he was resurrected. Now, was he actually resurrected physically, or was it more of a spiritual nature that people could see him? So we don't know. And because you don't understand what's going on, a bit like Nostradamus when he used to talk about the pig-faced people. And it wasn't until, the World War II came on and the guys had the gas masks. Mm-hmm. Then you understood what it was. So, there's lots of elements like that to it that we can look at. And yeah, we interpret things the way we do. So yes, I totally get that. There's so many things in the Bible that can have so many different meanings, and they're all beautiful in their own way.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in the Bible. There's parts of it I wonder wasn't just added in there for, the political gains from the kings and stuff from back then. But there's a lot of it that's kind of beyond what we would consider reasonable. Yes. And I think that's probably what we should focus on, because I used to be a very religious person. I'm not a religious person anymore. I'm a spiritual person.
Yes, I class myself that way too. And I don't disagree with any of their religions. And I get people get so much out of them. Mm-hmm. It's just, like you say, just open up a little bit and take it away from the one religion and just open it up. Because when we look at it, God is love in all religions. Right. And some people interpret it a little bit differently, but it's still love in all religions. And so that's sort of where I go. It's like, there's a lot of good. Yeah, sometimes they take a little bit strange, but anyway. But yes.
Yeah, and I don't mean to get too deep into it, but you've got all these different religions and they all call him God, but they call him God in different names. I mean,
Yes.
you've got Odin, and you've got, I don't know what, Buddha, and all these other names, or I don't know if Buddha's God, but all these different names. I think it's the same being, just they had not everybody has the same name for everything, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, you think about it when the police come to a car accident and they have to ask everybody what's happened, because everybody sees it from a different angle, and everybody sees it or perceives it in their own way. And when you think about it, if you could imagine being confronted with God, and whatever that looks like, it's like, well, you're going to see it your way. And I don't know what God looks like, but I know when I left my body during that attack, I know the messages I got. I know exactly what it was. And like I said, I'm not a religious person, but I went back into my body and I prayed out loud to the guys that were attacking me. They didn't like it. They hit me harder, but I still prayed out loud. And I only knew 2 prayers from primary school. And one was, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. And isn't that funny? Because that was what Jesus said on the cross, wasn't it? Something to that effect. And you're talking about how that correlates. That was one of the messages that I was given. It was like, forgive them, Lord. So I was forgiving them as they were doing what they were doing.
Wow.
So, and it was so... people say that when you've had a situation, a drama or a situation like that, you need to forgive. I was forgiving when it was happening. I didn't know why. I didn't understand it. I just followed what I felt was the right thing, or what my gut said, or what intuition said, or the messages that I got. So I just followed that along. And eventually, to try and shut me up, the hand was round my throat, hand over my mouth, nose, and basically I passed out. But I wasn't going to stop. Like that, those messages are so clear. And when you know that they're so clear, you know that they're from a greater source. You know they're from God.
That I'm so sorry that happened to you, but I'm glad that you have gotten to the point where you are forgiving and you can help other people. And my next question would be, do you teach people how to project themselves?
Not necessarily project. I do teach people how to connect with their intuition and learn to trust it. So all my business is all about trusting your intuition. The podcast is the art of intuition, or the voice of intuition, I call it now. So it is all about that. My biggest, I mean, I've used card decks and I've used different things like that, but my biggest thing was flowers. I read flowers.
Oh, wow.
So I ask people to have... flowers are like your goals in life. So we look at flowers as a goal in life. So if you have a goal, we've gone through business with SMART goals, where you have to do this and do that because it's a SMART goal. But when we achieve those SMART goals, because we've got the measurement right and we've got, we can do this and we can do that, and the timing and all the other words. But what they don't cover off on a SMART goal is the emotion side to it. It doesn't address your emotions. So you can achieve those goals, but sort of feel a bit flat and go, well, now what? Or it doesn't feel like what I wanted. So with flowers, I look at them as emotional goals, because it just resonates. And if you have a relationship or a financial goal and you choose a neutral image like a flower, then there's no connection except for your intuition. I like that. Oh, that feels good. That looks right. So we get the understanding of how we're feeling when we want to achieve that goal. So say with your podcast, you want to achieve 1 million followers. So you want to feel what that feels like, and you get that lovely feeling to it. And then, because I used to do a meditation, then you actually choose a flower image that represents that. And it's really funny, when I did it with my financial goal, my feeling was like a deep pink and white flower. That's all I could find, a deep pink and white flower. So I Googled pink and white flowers, scrolled through all the pink and white flowers. There was a couple that were close, and then one popped out, and I went, oh, that makes me feel the same way. That's it. Then I tried to adjust it. I wanted it a square image. It didn't work. I lost the feeling, put it back to where it was. And this is about trusting our intuition, because, like that didn't feel right. This feels right. And that was my flower image. And the biggest aha moment I got in that flower image was that it was actually a water lily, and there was great big water lily leaves, those big round pads on it, big round leaves. Round feminine leaves, guides, depending on where they are. We look at that sort of side to it. So straight away it went, okay, I've been trying to do this myself. I've been trying to create my business, because it was a business finance one. I've been trying to create my business on my own. I need to have women around me to help me, or not necessarily women, but feminine people that were more in touch with their femininity, to help me through my business. And it was a really big aha moment. So I use flowers to help people. That's sort of my main tool.
Well, it's for me and my goals. The first goal is that I wanted to get this message of positivity, and that there's alternate ways of getting through things and achieving your goals. And so that was I wanted to get the message out. I want to get it as far out as I possibly can. The subscribers, I mean, I won't lie, I get excited when I get new subscribers, and they've grown quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 months. And of course, 1 million subscribers would definitely be on that list, but the message is more important, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But if you can imagine, if you've got those subscribers, the message is getting out, isn't it?
It must be. Something's going right.
Absolutely.
And of course, I who wouldn't want to get monetized and start making money on it? And I'm like this close. I mean, literally this close. It could happen tomorrow, Yeah. And but the going back, I don't want to go too far off the subject. I just say the message is more important, and having folks like you come on and say, hey, look, this is the way I see life. This is the way things happen for me. Maybe it can happen for you. And I think that's what my purpose here is for, because I've almost died like 3 times.
Yeah.
So I'm here for some reason. And the last person that I talked to that had abilities said, yeah, you're supposed to be here, but you're not supposed to be here. I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
I know. And sometimes the easier way out is to, not be here. But you've got such a strong story to share, and the ability to do that. It'd be wrong of you not to do that almost.
And that's another reason why I do this, because I know there's somebody out there that's gone through the things that I have. Now, granted, a couple of the times that I shouldn't be here was because I was trying to not be here.
Yes.
But then when I was finally kind of happy with the way my job was going and things were going, and then I had a heart attack, and I was only 36.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I'm here for a reason. I tried killing myself with alcohol and drugs, and had a pistol up to my head at one point, and then I was like, this is what's funny. I was working at this one job. I'm sorry to talk about myself.
No, I love it. Go.
I was at this one job, and I absolutely hated it. But you have to provide for your family, and I would pray every day that something would happen, that I would die on the way to that job. And I was like, please just take me now. Let me have a heart attack. Somebody hit me. I don't care. I'm just ready to go. And then a buddy of mine was working at I worked for the city in the water department. And he said, hey man, I'm working over here at this city. We're looking for somebody. Come put in your application. So I did. And when I got that job, and then I enjoyed it a lot more. And I was like, yes, finally. And that's when I finally had the heart attack.
Oh,
Shouldn't have been asking for that in the first place.
Should have been asking for a job, a better job where you're enjoying it rather than the other way. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Too, because when I'm teaching people about their intuition and getting those messages, the first thing I say is you have to ask. You have to ask. Unfortunately, you were asking for the wrong thing.
I was wrong, asking for the wrong thing.
So be mindful about what you ask for, because as soon as you ask for it, funnily enough, Kyle, as soon as you ask, you are actually opening yourself to receive. Mm-hmm. If you don't ask, you're not open to receiving. So right. You've got to ask before you receive. So yeah, and asking is like prayer. That's an ask. WTF is like an ask, it's like, come on. So yeah, but you've got to ask. If you don't ask, you're just not opening yourself up to receive some of the information.
Well, my main thing is I want a kiss pinball machine. So please give me a kiss pinball machine.
Oh. When you said kiss pinball machines, I thought you meant you want to go around kissing them.
No, yes. the band.
Well, you just got to keep on asking. The other thing too is visualization, which tell me if I'm going off track here, but I did a lot of visualization. This was another one of those theory testing that I did. Mm-hmm. So visualization is the same sort of principle. You're asking, but you're doing it visually. So you're trying to get this image. And I did this. I was on we owned a 90-acre organic crop farm. So I was working pretty full on, on my own tractor and loved it. Loved being on the farm, loved that earth and everything. But every afternoon I would come in, I'd have a shower, wait for the kids to get home, and I'd do this creative visualization, this visualization. I'd go through the old farmhouse and I'd go, this is how I want this bedroom. This is how I want this bedroom. This is how I want the lounge. This is how I want the kitchen. And for 6 months, I went through and just visualized how I wanted things to be. Mm-hmm. I even went into when we went into the local hardware, I'd go and pick doorknobs that I'd like in the kitchen, or I'd go and look at the laminate colors. And my ex-husband, then he would say, we can't afford to do that. Why are you looking at those? And it's like, well, because you're looking at tools, I'm going to be, having a look over here. So I did that for 6 months. And then we had this almighty storm come through, ripped the roof of the house off. And basically the insurance guys came in and said, well, you've got new for old replacement. And I said, well, how long is that going to take? And he said, as long as it takes for you to choose the colors. And I've gone, well, I've already got those. It was like, you don't focus on how you're going to get it. You just focus on getting it. And with your kiss machine, sit there and pretend, like sit there and just pretend and press the buttons and go, that's what it looks like. That's what I'm going to be doing.
You know, what's funny is I said I wanted to retire early. I wanted to live somewhere where it was beautiful, because I lived near Houston growing up, and the town that I lived in was where one of the big chemical plants were, Exxon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was tired of, it was ugly to me, and the pollution, my allergies were just haywire all the time. Yeah. Not that they're much better up here, because now I have to contend with cedar trees, but that's okay. But I wanted to move up here near Austin, Texas, and retire early, and then I wanted to do podcasting. Well, I ended up getting into it with my boss at the job that I was at down there that I had loved for all those years, and I just took up my retirement and said, I'm out of here. And so we took part of my retirement money and we moved up here to Austin. I ended up getting another job up here, but that's when I was like, I really want to do the podcasting thing. And well, I ended up doing something at work that I shouldn't have, and I got fired. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I found out that I had a degenerative disease in my spine, which was not allowing me to work anyway. Yeah. And I've had surgery, started at my neck, and now it's in my very low back. Now, I don't want to scare people out there, but this actually made it possible for me to do this full time.
Yes.
And, you could easily say, oh, look what happened to me and blah, 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 blah. And things are just terrible. No, it's like, this actually made it possible to do what I wanted to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny how it sort of all works out. And you're talking about podcasts too. When I started my podcast, like if you'd asked me 5 years ago, did you want to do a podcast? You said you wanted to do a podcast. Somebody said to me, oh, you should do a podcast. And I was like, yeah, nah. It took me 2 years before I was ready to commit, because I'm this type of person. If I commit to say I'm going to do a podcast once a week, I will do a podcast once a week. And there's no if, buts, or maybe. So I'm very committed in what I do. But it took me 2 years before I went, okay, I'm going to do a podcast. Oh my God, Kyle, I love them. The people I'm meeting, it's just amazing. Yeah, I love it. I've got podcasts booked now for the next 2 months, ready to go. I've got another recording this afternoon, but I just love them. I can't believe how nice it is and how enjoyable it is to meet all these like-minded people. It's just been, and thanks to COVID, thank you, COVID, made it possible. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done it.
I'm ready for the COVID stuff to go away, though.
Oh, yes.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I give.
Yeah. It's like any drama. It's like, okay, we've done it, been there, now get rid of it. Yeah.
And like you said, the people that we meet, this wouldn't have been possible when we were kids. We didn't have all this internet and, being able to get on a computer and got a camera right there. And I'm talking to somebody on the other side of the world, and I can say I have friends over in Europe and Australia and all this because we talk on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And if you look at the possibilities out there, it's amazing. My first, because I don't know about you, when I first got into it and I was going and getting on people's social media, trying to get people to come on the show, then I found this site called matchmaker.fm. And I had to assure my wife it's not a dating site. It's finding people to come on your podcast. But it worked fairly well. Well, then I got a message one day from Podmatch, and within 3 days, almost 2 months was booked. I'm like, yes. That's crazy, because it would all the work I'd do just to get 1 week booked.
I know. Yeah, Podmatch. I don't know how I stumbled across onto that too, and that was the same sort of principle. I'm getting most of my guests are coming through Podmatch, but the funny thing is, I've been trying to get on guests, be a guest on other people's shows, and I'm not doing so good on that. So I thank you for asking me.
Oh, of course. That's right up the line of what I do. I like to have life coaches, and of course, I'm into the paranormal, so that kind of little bit of that world too. Yeah. I have noticed that some people don't thoroughly read my site and my profile, because if you see, I do paranormal and I do positivity shows, and some people are like, I'm not paranormal. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I do another show too. And then they ghost me. They don't even want to talk to me anymore. Whatever.
I saw you. I saw that because that's what I read too, and get the understanding of the paranormal. I'm into a little bit of that too, obviously with that. But when I saw the positivity side, I went, oh yeah, that's me.
I knew you were perfect for that part.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Of course. So how exactly do you help people to see that vision? Because some people, it's very difficult to say, yeah, I actually see it. I mean, you want it, but they don't really get it.
Because we receive this information, and when I say intuition is from the spirit to the physical, my true feeling for intuition is the God, because it's direct source, like what I call direct source. It's directly from God. It's in your spirit, because your spirit is still attached to God, and then it goes across. But we can have, like, psychics. Now, psychics can get spiritual messages from other spirit, not from direct source. So for me, intuition is definitely direct source, but you still get other aspects of it. So you get psychic, clairvoyant, and all the rest.
Right.
But when this information is coming through from direct source, when it's coming through, it can come through our chakras. That's because that's energy information. It can come through as a thought. It can come through as a feeling, an emotion. It can come through in the physical. When I used to do a lot of energy healing, vibrational healing, like Reiki and different things like that. When I got close to somebody, my hands would go very, very blotchy. And I had a couple of friends say, you really should get that checked. That, it doesn't look quite right. And I was so used to it that it never ever worried me, but they were very, very blotchy. So I became aware of it to start with. And I sort of went, okay, well, what's going on here? Asked. And then over a period of time, it worked out that whenever there was somebody near me that needed healing, they would go blotchy. They would go blotchy when I'd have a client coming for some healing work. They would go blotchy. And that's how I got the understanding of it, is that when I needed to do some work on it, they vibrate, because we have small chakras in our palms as well, but they would feel funny and they would go all blotchy. And I knew that was a intuitive sign, a physical intuitive sign. Butterflies in the stomach, physical intuitive.
That's what I get.
Yeah.
I get the butterflies when somebody's doing a reading on me, or if someone is doing like the healing,
Goose pimples.
I get butterflies in my stomach, like, almost like that anticipation of going on a first date or something.
Absolutely. And this is sort of the way we look at it. So one of the first things I do is try and get an understanding of what the person, if I'm doing counseling with them or coaching with them, is what their strengths are. So it's not always seeing. Sometimes we hear. Sometimes people, when we talk about channelers, they're getting their information through their throat chakra, and it just comes out. So it's where their strength lies, where their information is coming through. And just because you're getting it through one area, it doesn't mean you're not getting it through other areas as well. So we get it all the time. One of the examples I say is, like I was driving the other week with my partner. Now, there was something on the radio and I was listening to it, and I said to him, did you hear that? How synchronistic was that? Because I was only just thinking about that the other day. And he goes, I didn't hear anything. And we're both in the same car. We've both got the radio's going. We're both doing it. I was tuned in because I needed to hear that. He didn't need to hear that. And then he sort of went, oh, did you see that? And I've gone, nope, didn't see that. He needed to see that. His intuitions, there's those little muscles that go, look that way, do this, do that, so you're getting that information all the time. So that's one of the first steps, for want of another word, to get an understanding of how you receive those messages. So we go, you're aware of it, ask for it. How are you receiving it?
Yeah. And when you mentioned about when you hear things or you see things and you're supposed to, what's funny is, say somebody I haven't seen in a long time, that just for some reason they came across my mind that day. I kid you not, I hear from them within a day or two.
Yeah,
happens
phone
every
call,
time.
see them on Facebook, something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I still think it's the metaverse. They're getting into our brains, and they're bringing all this onto social media. I'm kidding. No, but I've wondered, is that something more within myself that's, it's putting this message out there? Hey, I need to hear from my buddy Robbie or something, and I haven't seen him in over a year, and then boom, all of a sudden I got a message from him. Just the other day, I was thinking about my old job, and I said, it sure would be nice to, talk to one of the guys. And just randomly, I got up one morning and there's a message from somebody that I worked with. And he's like, hey, man, I don't work there anymore. I work somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So to start with, you're asking. So you're putting it out there, Carl. You're sort of going, oh, I wouldn't mind connecting with one of the guys from work. You didn't ask who. You just sort of put it out there. You may have had a thought of who you wanted, but you put it out there. I mean, when we talk about the law of attraction, that is the law of attraction. You're putting it out there. You're not saying, that's why the law of attraction, you had the heart attack, you silly duffer. But you're putting it out there. So be mindful next time. Be good.
Be
Put
good.
positive stuff out. But yes, it is. That's like the law of attraction. And with a lot of stuff, they go into things like we're magnet and energetic. We're electricity and magnetic at the same time. So with people, we can connect and click like as magnets, or we can actually repel. So we have the ability to do that. So when you're starting to put that information out, that's what you're doing. You're putting out, either magnetic or electric energy in all that aspect, and it will start to click and move and attract and come to you.
So you're able to help people through the confusing time where, I've had this discussion with people. I'm like, I want this or I want that to come into my life. And that they'll say, well, what you're doing is you're actually saying that you don't have it. So you really don't want it. And I'm like, okay, I'm confused. I'm not sure how would I ask for this, and everything I ask for is I do it the wrong way. I need to get out of that confusion. And I know there's probably somebody else out there listening or watching this going, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yes, absolutely. Because I've been there, done that too. So it's like, I want $1 million. Well, that's because I haven't got it. So you what they're saying is you say, I've got $1 million. It's the energy you're putting out. It's like, this is how I'm living because I've got $1 million. And if I had $1 million sitting in my back pocket, what would I do differently? So you start to live like you've already got it. One of the other areas that, especially with finance, because it's always a challenge, finance and relationships, who needs them? We all do. But one of the aspects was with the money. It's like, I can't afford that. When you say that, you can't afford it. You're actually saying you can't afford it. Where when you turn around and say, I choose not to buy that, I choose to hold on to my money, or I choose to get something different. You're starting to get the choices then happening. So when they're talking about that, they're talking about the energy side to it. So when you're saying, I want $1 million, if you're saying it because I haven't got $1 million and I want $1 million, it doesn't work as well. But when you're saying, oh, look at me with my $1 million, your emotional goal, look at me. This is what I'm doing. How exciting is this? You're visualizing it. You're actually making that energy go out and come back to you. So it's like, okay, I might not have $1 million, but I'm certainly on my way to my $1 million. I'm certainly going there because I have got this feeling of it, this emotion of it, because I'm excited. And when you're starting to do that, you're bringing forward this beautiful excitement energy, this beautiful peaceful energy that you will attract more of. And one of the areas where you're looking at, Kyle, and I did it with my business, every time I try to do something with my business that to bring in money, I fall in a heap. It just flops. Mm-hmm. Every time I do something that I'm passionate with, like the podcast, and I like you say, you put a lot of time and effort into the podcast, you don't get paid for it. But when I'm doing that, because I'm putting that beautiful, loving energy out, I start bringing other people in and they're purchasing things and it's making money that way. So it's that energy that we're putting out with it. So don't ask for $1 million when you're feeling shitty and you haven't got $1 million. When you've got money in your hand or you've just received your paycheck, say, whoa, I love this. I love paying bills. I love paying bills because I can. And I pay them excitingly. And they've got lower and lower and lower and smaller and smaller and smaller because they don't affect me and they don't put that negative energy back out again.
I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
But, I'd been feeling down for a while and I knew I needed to be uplifted, do something to, just give me a little bit more gusto. And I said, yeah, something's going to happen that's going to raise my feelings.
Yeah.
And I was watching YouTube, because I don't watch as much TV anymore. I always watch YouTube. And one of the videos I was watching, this guy was doing a reaction to Judas Priest in concert. And, the lead singer is 70 years old, and he was still singing like he was in his 20s.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, that'd be so cool to see them. And a few days later, my wife's sitting on the couch and she's kind of going through her Facebook. She's on all these Facebook pages, you can buy stuff or trade stuff with people,
Yes.
and
Yes.
this lady had 2 tickets on the floor, and she didn't want to go. She decided she didn't want to go. And she gave my wife the 2 tickets to go see Judas Priest. And they just happened to be in Austin.
So cool.
And when we got there, in the spot that I was sitting at, because I was in a wheelchair and I couldn't really see. I mean, I can get up on my cane, but that's only for so long, and I have to sit back down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I have to practice what I preach. I don't expect everybody just to move out of my way. I mean, it's my problem. It's not everybody else's problem. But it'd be kind of cool to see a little bit closer. And because we used to work there, and my wife talked to somebody, and it's like, hey, can we just move over so we could see a little bit better? She said, I do one better. Ended up next to the stage.
Good on you.
Got to see the rest of the show next to the stage.
Yeah.
I'm like,
but Kyle, the way you did it, you said it'll be really cool to go and see them in concert. Now, if you said that, oh, geez, it'd be really cool if I could go and see them, and you said it in a, there's no way that's going to happen. But if you've said it in a context like, oh, wow, that'd be really cool to go and see them, you've put it as a positive, not as a negative. Same words, exactly the same. The emotional attachment that goes with it is the energy that you're putting out, because emotions are energy, emotion.
True. I didn't mean to spend a lot of time talking about myself, but I'm the only example I have. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
My website is www.intuitivenature.com.au. It's an Australian website, so it's got the AU at the end, or the artofintuition.com.au.
Okay. And you have social media, anything like that?
Oh God, everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere.
It's under Susan Jane. Didn't want to use the ex-husband's name. Under Susan Jane. So just my first 2 names. But yeah, it's everywhere. Look, I'm even on TikTok. Woohoo! It's not good, I can assure you, but I do little daily readings on TikTok as well. So yeah, you can follow me on all those. All the regular platforms. It's on all of them. I think on Twitter it's at Your Intuitive Nature. So if it's not Intuitive Nature, it's Your Intuitive Nature.
Okay, I'll get all the links, and I'll put them on the description of the video and the audio. And now I could go on talking to you for a long time, but we have to cut it short right here. But you're welcome to come back anytime. So
I'd love to. Yeah, for sure. I'd love to explain a little bit more about the flower readings and the other theories I've tested, like seeing your aura. I tested that. It'd be really cool. Dance with Anger was another book I read. That was really good. I tested that theory. That was ex-husband didn't like that. But anyway, that was me standing my ground and going, yes, that's not going to happen anymore.
We might have to, do something like on a regular basis, like a month or so apart, and just talk about something different each time.
I'd love to. You're really easy to talk to, and I really enjoy it. But again, like you, we're putting the word out. That's what I want to do. Trust your gut. It's giving you all the right messages.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And I want to thank everyone out there. If you are new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe. If you're a regular, well, thank you. Thank you so much for your support, because it's because of you we do what we do. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network